Excellent. So I think then let's start our session. My name is Anton Grutter. I'm from the Lean Institute Africa in South Africa. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to Chris Landman and Jason Tilley. They are from Unilever Field Services that I've had the pleasure to work with over the last few years. Chris is the client executive in charge of the Unilever division that merchandises products across Southern Africa for Unilever. And Jason is the continuous improvement manager who's been very involved in their lean initiative. So with that said, let me hand over to them. And Chris and Jason, we're looking forward to your presentation. Chris or Jason, are you able to show us your presentation? I got a message that they are still waiting for approval to get into our session. So I'm hoping that one of the technical producers are able to help us to get Chris and Jason with us. I'm afraid I'm not sure what's happening. And I'm not getting any support from the technical support people. So please bear with me while I try and find out how to get some help from them. Hi again, it's Anton. I'm back again. I got a message from Jason that the technical support people are helping him. So let us give it a minute or two more and hopefully they'll be able to join us. Okay, there's Chris and Jason.
Thank you.
Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Anton. And we could hear the entire introduction, so thank you very much for that introduction. We will share our presentation now and take it from there.
All right,
Apologize,
great, guys.
To everybody.
You're welcome. It's all yours.
Thank you. All right, so as Anton said, he's been working with us for a couple of years, and I'm going to go and give you a little bit of background around what it is that UFS or Smollan does within the South African environment, who we do it with, etc., etc. So without further ado, we deliver growth for our clients, covering every aspect of our client's brand. So most of the businesses that Smollan works with are multinational manufacturers within the retail environment. So it's the Unilevers of the world, Nestle, as an example, or somebody like J&J, etc., etc. And what we do within that environment is we literally do everything from field activation, digital merchandising, operations, sales, field force optimization, consulting, rural sales, and standard merchandising. Now, what's unique in the South African environment is that in the stores in South Africa, most of these major manufacturers have a huge field team that play for them. The Unilever Smollan relationship, or UFS Smollan relationship, has been an ongoing partnership, a collaboration, for a lack of a better word, since 1984. We work with Unilever in 22 countries doing sales, merchandising, and brand activation, as it's mentioned there. And there's 28,000 people that are directly dedicated to the Unilever businesses across these countries. Various holding companies in the different geographic areas. As for UFS, which is the dedicated Unilever field team within South Africa, there is 4,489 employees directly employed for Unilever in South Africa, of the total field team of about 25,000 people within the Smollan organization. We touch about 15,321 modern trade, traditional trade, and or informal stores on a weekly basis with these staff members. And most of the staff members are dedicated to 2, 3, or 5 stores. What is interesting is the environment that we work in. So, as I mentioned, we dedicated to the client. Our client specifically is Unilever, or my client specifically is Unilever. In some instances, I think my blood is as blue as the people that work for Unilever themselves. We work in the retail environments. We've got 3 major modern trade retailers that cover most of South Africa, but those are not the only areas we work in. Spar, Checkers, Pick n Pay. And then, as I mentioned, we are a service provider of various aspects, brand activation, sales, and merchandising as the Smollan organization within the retail store. Now, the challenge that we sit with is we've got people working in a retail environment that do not belong to the retailer, and we've got a client and manufacturer. And this is, in our terms, we call it the 3-ring circus. And when we were working through the environment of the 3-ring circus, we thought about how can we better do what we do within the stores. And this, I'm going to hand over to Jason to explain to you a little bit more.
So thanks, Chris. Thanks, everybody, for the opportunity to be able to tell our story for you guys today in our journey with Lean. So why Lean? Why should we embark on Lean as an organization? So first of all, we found our organization was doing a lot of firefighting, and that was one of the top or foremost reasons we went on to this journey. And another thing we were picking up is that we had this concept of dipping down. So staff were basically waiting for management to come to store and tell them what to do and when to do it. And we wanted to find a way to better get them to stop doing this. We also wanted to find a way to be more resilient and be able to react and respond better to changing situations within our environment, being the retail environment. And foremost was to create a thinking organization. So Chris came to me and said, when he gave this deployment to me, he says, this is the one thing I want you to land with the guys, is that we have thinking people in our stores. Now, to own our Lean initiative, we decided to brand it. We called it iGrow. And we even got our marketing department to develop a beautiful logo, as you see on the screen there. And so just as a disclosure, whenever you hear people on videos and stuff referring to iGrow, they are actually referring to our lean initiative. So you can just replace the word iGrow with lean. So we started our journey about 3 years ago. It's been almost 3 years ago. And yes, we've had some challenges along the way. So if you take it, I would illustrate our lean journey like trying to build an organization with Lego blocks. And with the challenges, the Lego blocks didn't always fit that well. But we took the learnings, and slowly but surely, those Lego blocks are starting to fit in place. And 2022, as you will see later on, the Lego blocks have really been falling beautifully in place for our organization when it comes to lean. So when Anton asked me to tell our story, I thought the best way to tell our story was using the format of a timeline. And as I mentioned, our journey started about 3 years ago, in the beginning of 2020, in February 2020. And we started with 3 test sites in retail stores. So we went on Gemba visits to 3 stores, and we with the purpose of starting with a daily management system in those 3 stores. So what you see here in the picture, there's Anton giving the initial training to the guys. This is all the staff in those 3 test sites. You can see on the board there, he's busy teaching them visual measurement. This picture here is to show you just my first experiment that I embarked on. As Chris explained, we are in a retail store, but we don't own that environment. So to put visual measurement against boards, against walls would be quite a challenge. So this was my first attempt to try and bridge that challenge. And I came up with this brilliant idea of 2 massive wooden boards that the guys can simply post their visual measurements, their task boards, and their graphs and so forth on the board. However, the learning is that these boards were too heavy. You can see here the first team starting to learn basic interpretation, learning how to use the graphs, using simple red and green. And one of the big things that we didn't realize then, but one of the biggest lessons was that the in-store teams, the frontline staff, really responded brilliantly to the daily management system. And that's something that looking back now, we can see was a huge learning that we took back then. This next photo, you can see this is one of the teams, and you can see why I say the boards were too heavy. You can just see in relation to myself and Anton how big these boards were. So needless to say, that experiment, we had some learnings and it didn't really work that well. So our Lego blocks weren't fitting too well there. I'm glad to say I've come up with a better solution, which I'll share with you a bit later. So that's the beginning of 2020. But as we all know, our first huge challenge came, COVID-19. And this was really put brakes on our deployment because we were just starting to get comfortable on those test sites. Then COVID broke out, and because of COVID restrictions due to the lockdowns, we weren't allowed in the stores. No management was allowed to get to the front line. And so this really put a challenge there to us. So myself and Anton discussed the countermeasure, how to redirect. And so we came up with this idea of doing an online A3 masterclass with specifically our regional managers. So we had roughly about 30 people on that training program, training them primarily how to use a WPDCA through the A3 method. But here came our first huge learning. The people were just frustrated. They struggled to see the connection, because in our organization, as most organizations, we were used to, you have got a problem, that equals a solution. Now we were trying to teach the guys, you got a problem, define your problem, what is the current condition, what is the cause, and only then get to the countermeasure or the solution. And this created, some frustration, which unfortunately led to some breaking down of learning, and also some anti-sponsors arise, because the guys just couldn't see the correlation between A3 thinking and how is this going to help them in their day-to-day operations. Now, I've also mentioned to you we had this huge challenge. Management couldn't get into stores because of COVID. So Chris is going to speak to you about the countermeasure that we came up for that situation.
Yes, and I mean, like Jason says, that the challenge that we had was the frustration that the management felt around the A3s and the PDAC method. But then also the second big challenge that we had was these individuals that we were trying to empower and develop to a thinking organization. We couldn't see them. They were going into stores on a daily basis and visiting the stores and doing their daily tasks, be it sales or merchandising or activations within the store. But we could not guide them from a leadership and management point of view. What we then did as a countermeasure is we developed what we call the parking lot call. And the parking lot call was to make sure that we do interact with individuals. I mean, it took months and months in South Africa from a COVID perspective before we were allowed to rove between stores. And we had to make sure that we interact with our people. 4,500 odd people. If you do not see them on a regular basis, the motivational levels, the performance levels, et cetera, dramatically reduce. So we developed the parking lot call, seeing the person outside the store and asking him to visually give us a picture, verbally give us a picture of what is happening in the store, what the store visually looks like inside, through key metrics that we were measuring, be it promotions, innovation, the pricing that's on shelf, or if the new innovation has landed in the store. That was the one challenge. The second challenge was, as Jason referred to earlier, that people found the A3s quite challenging. And this is where I had to embark in my own A3 as well, and to establish the true north that we as UFS wanted to chase. And it was hard yards, even for me, not understanding lean as well as I thought I had, or as I should have at the point in time. So there was lots of challenges with my True North A3. This being said, after about 10 versions of it, and Anton and Jason's help, we did get to a fantastic True North A3 result.
Thanks, Chris. So that brings us now to our next point in our journey, still with 2020. So Chris had now created his True North vision for us. And what we did is we then started weekly sessions with specifically the Manco team, with a view of trying to lay a foundation of lean principles and practices with them. What you see on the screen now is a view of Chris's of his A3, the True North that he created there. And we started each one of these sessions highlighting that True North. What also came out of Chris's presentation, or his A3, was 5 challenge A3. So, we didn't completely learn our lesson immediately. So we stuck with trying to teach the guys A3s. But we thought, instead of doing it on a forum with 30 people trying to learn an A3, maybe if we hand out real challenge A3s and do one-on-one coaching with these owners, we'd get a better result. And it did go slightly better, but still A3 thinking was a challenge to start the guys off with in the beginning. And the frustration was still there. The other things we dealt with the teams, which they actually did respond with very well, especially the Manco team, was leadership behaviors. They loved that stuff, things like psychological safety and that sort of thing. That stuff resonated with the leadership team. What we also tried to land with the Manco team was our first introduction to the Lean Transformation Framework. And another little learning is we tried to introduce this through a thing that Anton introduced to us called the gap analysis. I said to him, this would be a great tool to introduce it. However, again, the blocks didn't fit too well, so it doesn't look as nice as John Shook's house there with Lego blocks. And so a little bit of frustration around the Lean Transformation Framework right in the beginning. And I want to be honest, even for myself and Chris, we struggled to see how this is going to fit into our bigger organization. So you can see 2020 was a challenging year. And I mean, I suppose it was for most organizations because of COVID, it was a challenging year. But we fought through those and we took those learnings and we just continued through. 2021 was a bit of a better year because myself and Chris went on the Lean Leadership Development, the LMDP program with the Lean Institute Africa. And we continued our work with Manco on the side, but this is where things really started to brighten up for myself and Chris. The dots were really connecting for the two of us because we were learning wonderful things like how to do a process flow map, how to do value stream mapping. And the biggest revelation for the two of us, and we could see why Anton was trying to land the Lean transformation framework with us, was we could finally connect the dots and see how it applies to our organization. What you see here on the board is we were able to develop our own framework and our own way of bringing Lean to our organization. So we were making good progress in 2021. And when I say we, I'm talking specifically myself and Chris, because we were really starting to understand it. However, there was still a little problem. And I sat and I thought to myself, we're making progress, but we're not landing this with the teams. It feels as if we're not getting this through to them. And I went to Chris and I said to him, I've got this problem. And I decided to embark on an A3. And the focus of this A3 was to see how are we going to entrench Lean with our frontline teams, with our management teams, and get a bit of a deeper penetration with Lean within Unilever field sales. And so when I looked at my analysis of this A3, what I found is that we had a lot of examples that we've been sharing with the team on Lean. We've looked at Lean manufacturing. We had been looking at Lean in the medical environment. We were looking at Lean in the motor industry. However, there was no real FMCG example for UFS. And so my countermeasure, the main countermeasure that came off that A3 was to develop a model line. And I took this plan to Chris. I said, Chris, let us create our own real life UFS example of Lean. And give me a team, a total regional manager team. So when I say total regional manager team, I mean a regional manager with her field managers as well as frontline staff, and let us go and implement from top to bottom Lean in that region. And then we can start showing the guys what Lean is going to look like. And so our best year to date was 2022 because we started this model line and the focus was to get the daily management system stabilized within this region. And we also focused on Manco at the same time. Chris said, I want you to start stabilizing the system with my Manco team. And that was also a very smart move because now that the guys can see what it looks like, they're getting excited. But we've already started setting them up because we haven't cut Manco out, setting them up for bigger deployment, which is hopefully going to take place in 2023. So now we're going to get into the exciting bit of this presentation. It's the model line and what Lean currently looks like in our organization. And yes, it's not perfect, but I promise you it's really starting to make sense for the guys. And really, we're starting to get ahead of the curve. So as mentioned, I said that the main focus of the model line is to get the daily management system stabilized. But I'm going to next show you a video because I don't want you to just hear from myself and Chris and hear what we have to say. I want you to hear from, specifically in this interview, from the regional manager herself and from a field manager in a team. What was their first impression of Lean when they first heard of Lean? What is their impression now? But more importantly, what is the value they see with Lean in their teams?
My first impression of iGrow was, so I found it very difficult firstly. The regional managers and the DSMs were introduced to iGrow concept around 2020, beginning of 2020. I struggle to see the correlation between iGrow and operations and how it will fit in our busy context in today lives. So I find it quite difficult. I struggle to see how this is going to be different.
My first impression with iGrow was that it was bad because I didn't understand the concept and how it's gonna fit in my daily activities or my daily work.
My impression of iGrow now is drastically changed. When I was told 2022 around there that I'm going to be moving to a different region, and I'm going to be, or my region is going to be the first region to actually try iGrow and work with it. Thinking of my experience in 2020, I must tell you now that I'm an advocate for iGrow because the value that it has added to my team, my immediate team, that is my field managers, my assistant, and my bank staff has been incredible.
My impression for iGrow now has changed. And the reason is that I now understand how it fits on my daily activities and how it helping me to produce a result without being running around. And it has added value in that when I go to the stores, I no longer go there to point or to ask why this is not done. I go there to a store to coach.
Just to add more to the value segment, it has quicker a lot, and I've always said that if iGrow is implemented correctly, it is a total game changer. So what we have seen is that from a bank perspective or store staff perspective, we've seen how in the past we would think you can't stretch the guys beyond a certain point. I can tell you now that we have stretched our guys beyond. They are even running with the concept. You walk into a store and they surprise you and say, you know what we found, you know what we're doing now. So in a particular store, as an example, in Hyper Soweto, so the guys are now starting to use data to make strategic decisions in the store, right? Such that it has left an incredible impression on the store GM. Right, who's also now interacting with their task board. He also comes and gives them tasks, right? And he would say, come back and confirming these things with us. So we are receiving support, and even the GM's work previously was that he's now when these guys are coming to this to him to ask for this and that, they bring data to say this is why I need extra space. Right, so they have also went as far as delving into the ASAP, which is something that has never been done before. Right, they checked the data, they came back with their findings and all of that. It has created an engaged team, right, that is adding value to the business and to the client.
iGrow has created value to my team in that in their daily 15 minutes meeting, everyone participates. Therefore, it has created unity.
iGrow has been so incredible to me. Firstly, so I need to break it down into points. So from an admin assistant, because I'm an admin assistant, from an admin assistant point of view, it has changed and transformed how we manage our clients, right, within the regions. It has changed my field manager's perspective as well, because how we run our meetings, we are not running iGrow meetings or what I want to call smart meetings, right? The same KPI board or the measurement board that our field marketers are using, we are also using, but we're using it digitally to run our meetings and I do today. So I absolutely love the fact that you can literally cut and paste an individual from this role to that role. Because what the field marketer is seeing on their dashboard, on their files, is exactly what we've got on our dashboard. Recently, we've had a few field marketers coming through during our Friday meetings. One of them said, hey, But we also have that same KPI and the measurement board on our funds. As well as that. So whatever was happening and which was not planned was that we decided to ask the guys, to the field marketers now to sort of present that so literally on their they found it very easy, very simple, because this is what they're doing on their files when they're giving their certificates.
It has further created value to my team that because everyone is engaging this dominant entirely, and they've got now have got a better relationship with students.
The advice that I would give to a regional manager or to a regional manager who's about to start and grow is that first you should go into it with an open mind, right? With the understanding that as much as your team is going to be learning, you're also going into an incredible learning journey. Understand as well that you are not going to be the one holding people accountable. The system and the efficient processes that will be in place is exactly what will be holding people accountable. And you are also not above the law. So the same system that is holding your team accountable will also hold you accountable. And be open to that. Be open to stretching yourself, stretching the team, and doing things differently. Elimination of waste of time, waste of resources. It's a game changer.
So you can see clearly from the teams in the beginning, as Kepa was saying, the regional manager wasn't making sense. It was difficult, but now you can see she's a total advocate for lean. She's just talking lean to everybody she sees. As a result of that enthusiasm, just before I carry on with the model line, I just want to share with the forum is that we took the rest of Manco to one of her stores to show them what it looks like in her store. And that enthusiasm is just spilled over to the rest of the divisions, and they're all just standing in line. Chris?
Yeah, and it was quite interesting, you know, after having a 2020 year and a 2021 that was fairly struggling, as soon as we had this model line in place and we actually showed the rest of the people, I mean, we had to fly people all over the country to get them here. When myself and Jason, we'd been trying in 2020 and 2021 to push people into lean. After we showed them the model line and the great work that was done by Kepu and her team, we now need to hold the people back. They are so enthusiastic that we're not quite sure how we're going to get to everywhere. I mean, it's a 15,000 store base, so we're not quite sure how we're going to get there, and that's probably one of our next challenges. But the switch around was amazing, from pushing to literally them pulling us along.
So yeah, and remember I said in the beginning of the presentation that when we went to those first test stores, there was a learning there that we didn't realize we were learning, and it was the fact that the teams respond well to the daily management system, and I think that's part of the success of the model line is that we're simply just getting them to do the daily management system, and that's making them connect the dots, and you'll see that's one of our biggest learnings. Just to get into a little bit of how our daily management system looked. You heard Kepo say that from management right down to frontline, it's like a cut and paste. These guys just like, wow, but you guys are doing what we're doing in store, you're doing your management meeting. And that's what I wanted to land with these guys. And so I initially started with the management team, working with them first and seeing how can we get visual boards going for them. And what you see on the screen here is just an Excel version or an extract of the visual boards that I created for the teams with sales on our main KPIs. You can see it's normal bar graphs, red and green, all the lean stuff that we were taught, and it works awesome. The guys are so on top of their game. And when I say the guys, the management team are very regularly looking at their KPIs, and very rarely do we end on a red at the end of a cycle. With that said, the other challenge I had was how do we get the task board on an online platform? And I initially first had an Excel task board document that I drew up as a task board that had red dots on. But I thought to myself, well, we've got this tool called Teams. There's a task function within Teams, and I started learning a little bit more about Teams, and I developed this electronic task board on Teams. Just to quickly explain to you what you see on the board, you'll see there's 3 buckets. Those of you that have worked with this function on Teams before would be familiar with this. You can create different buckets on Teams. The parking lot bucket is for future projects, future tasks, especially for the Manco team. This is very important because they've got a lot of projects coming up and they get a forward view of some of the tasks that they've got to start looking at. The far right-hand side one, the need help one, that's sort of a system that I built in for Andon, where if any of the guys are struggling with their task, they can simply drag and drop their task in that column, and they can type for either Chris to please assist, or if it's a lower down team, for the regional manager to get involved, or the DM to get involved to see what support that they need. But the main area that they work on is the middle column, the in progress column. And the way we develop the dot system within Teams is Teams has all these little tags that you can assign to tasks. And I took all the ones that were closest to red and I just simply labeled them first dot, second dot, third dot, fourth dot, fifth dot. And if you get a dot, you just add a tag to the task. And Chris,
we don't like dots. We don't like dots
because he gets most of the red dots in his team. But I say it works very well. The last thing I want to say on the Teams task board that we find works well is we give it to our admin assistants to manage for the teams. We make them own the task board. So in other words, they take tasks off, they put tasks on, they allocate red dots. And what's nice about that is they're very much more involved with the management teams, and they even know much more what's going on ground. We've had one admin assistant, so Gepa mentioned the admin assistant. The admin assistant responded so well to the task board, she started exposing him to more lean stuff, and I'm glad to say he's promoted to a field manager, and he's running with lean in that. So it's just been incredible for the model line team. Okay, so the next, I'm going to show you another video to show you a little bit what it looks like on the front line. And this video is going to show you a frontline team meeting, but I'm going to let the team do the talking.
Morning, guys. Welcome to our 15-minute cycle meeting. So what we're going to do today is to look at the visual measurement, the KPI board. So as you can see, here we do have for this current cycle, we do have also the promotion, we have proposition, shelf life, and innovation. So as you can see now, as of today, we're in green. We're at 100% on perfect stock. So you might see here, guys, as you can see, some are written in different markers. So here I've used the red pen because normally it's at the beginning of the cycle. So the numbers are below the target. So I use the red pen. But as the questions are answered, the numbers turn into green. That's why I use a different marker. And also we do have the number of stock alerts which were generated for that particular day. As you can see here, we had 4, and then here 0, and no answers. And also you can see our service level check for this week is at 98%. And guys, I'd like you to, for now, to look also at the task board to review the previous task. As you know, on the board we use the red dot system. So these were the tasks which were given as of yesterday. So we are going to review on this task for how far are we with the task. So as you can see on the task board, this task board is not only limited to us. So as you see, the GM here gave Utilani the task on what to do for that particular day. So we're gonna
go through it. So I'm going to look at the task. One of the tasks was, as you know, on our previous iGrow session, what we discovered was that our top selling SKUs on ASN is totally different from what in the store, what we normally see in the store. So I like to find out from Noreen, because you had the task of taking off on our, what did you do with that?
I gave them one shirt, sorry, increase the order. Oh, that's good.
And also I see here to learn it, the PM gave you a task on amplifying the self promo. What did you do with it?
Yeah, I give it a one shirt by opening 4 pieces.
The team on your side, as you know, it's stock first season. What, as you see the task, one of the tasks was to look at the stock fair, what we can do for stock fair. What did you do about it?
Okay, what I did was, remember there are some of the lines that are the bulk packs that are listed in TC. So I spoke to the GM that we can put them on shelf, and then he agreed. So what I did, I put the boxes of something like the bulk pack of in cream and sunlight liquids because can't put everything on shelf. So yeah, I only have those 3 lines on shelf.
I see here there's also a task about the ASN, the rendezvous that our original wanted to know what the value of those Ola ice cream, how much is Ola contributing towards the ASN value. So because the deadline is tomorrow, it was today. So as you know, on the task board we use the red dot system. So because this is still outstanding, it's my task. I'll just put the red dot here, just to move it forward. Guys, as you know, we're going to Black Friday in a week's time. So I like to know from you guys, what are your plans, or what can we do for Black Friday in your department?
For all eyes.
All ice cream. So you have to give me updates for that.
I
Okay.
have to put pressure on self as well as those guys.
There's also this sprinkling. The lean on PC, what can we help you?
On shield and live boil, stop pressure. And then I'm gonna do a cut case for live boil.
Right, whatever you need, bring the articles so that we can escalate the matter further. We need to be ready for next week, so we have to be hands-on from now. We have to make sure that everything is perfect.
Okay, about that, the information that you get for ASAP, what I did, remember, the Scarlet Blossom is one of the top selling SKUs on ASAP. So what I did, I gave more forward share so that it's more visible.
So, guys, with regard to future tasks, is there any task that you'd like to have? Yes,
Okay, my task for those shelf trays for shoot. Yeah,
yes.
yeah, I'm gonna put them today.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
so it's gonna be done by today.
by the end of today, I'll do them.
Shelf price, huh? Price to be. Excellent. And then, guys, do you want me to add anything on the task?
For me, I have to maintain the basis that we have for self and until
As long as one of the, okay. So, that's how you just on the palette display of sunlight on the bar. That's it. It's one of the top selling escapes there. The moment on your side, what can you do?
standing order for quality.
Okay. So you want an increase in your quality because one of the concerns on the online side. Okay. Yeah, quality. So basically, guys, that's what we have for today. So I'd like us to go and hit the ground running. If you meet any challenges, only there, guys, listen to your issues. See. So let's use data as market precedents. If we see an increase in sales, let's open our mind. Let's see what we can do with the data that we get. Thanks.
So their view of what it looks like at the front line to hold a team meeting, what a team meeting looks like. Just to explain to you, the main guy you were seeing on the screen, his name's Orlins. He's our field marketer. And he basically leads the store, the staff inside the store. So he runs most of the meetings, but we're starting to look at alternating between the teams. You can see Norman to his one side is the quiet one in the team. So we are working on the introverts within the team, but it is really working very well. So I mentioned that I had a better solution for the huge boards, and it was as simple as an in-store file. You saw him working with a file. This is just a closer view of what his visual measurement document looks like. So as he explained there, red and green, if he's on or off KPIs. This is what the task board looks like inside the file. Very simple. What's the task, who, by when, and if there's a dot to be given. This document, apologies for being very small, but it's just to show you, to illustrate. Chris put a challenge to us, and what he found is that when they go to stores with the client, Unilever being our client now, everybody in the store doesn't speak the same language. If he goes to one store, they give a good overview. If he goes to another store, not so good. And so one of the standard work that we put in the files was this in-store script. So basically, word for word tells the person in the store, my name is, and he puts his name in there and he can populate it. My sales number is X. And so they speak the same language. This has really also gone down well with the teams, because also the teams are reluctant to talk to higher management. Now the field marketer leads the visit, where before it was the regional manager and the divisional manager. Even the merchandisers are excited to talk about their section and to give an update for the sections that they work in. So this has also really been a good document in that file.
Good standard operated process that was put in place by the team, and it wasn't. I mean, I gave them the challenge, but it wasn't. It's not my work. So really well done by the team.
Yeah, that's good. So the last slide I want to show you. This is the introvert in that specific team, Norman. And the reason I want to put Norman on the screen is it just illustrates so beautifully the power of the introvert, first of all, and secondly, the enthusiasm that this has created within the team. So he's standing on. If you can notice on the ground, there's what we call cut cases. And Norman has become so enthusiastic and responded so much to the Lean Daily Management System that he said he's got an innovation on how to pack these cut cases out with having minimal loose stock. He demonstrated to Chris in store. And he is so proud of this. And this is really a huge shout out. So what I'm busy doing now is I'm actually with Norman writing an SOP for this innovation that he has put in place. And again, this is a great example of how successful the model line has been. So that's most of our story. I just want to quickly share with you some learnings from our journeys. So the first one is be patient. The guys don't all get it at the same pace. Patient with the teams, and be patient with yourself, and don't get discouraged when you hit roadblocks and your Legos don't fit. With that said, and this is no surprise if you listen to my story, for us, don't start with A3s and PDCA problem solving. Rather focus on stabilizing the daily management system, because in our case, the teams have responded easier to that. And with that, don't worry if the daily management system is not perfect. Just get it going. Chris?
Yeah, the final one is create a model line. Like I mentioned earlier, the most enthusiasm that we got is when we showed the greater management team this model line and how it had improved. We always had the view that people don't come to work to do a bad job. They actually want to show and showcase what they want to do, much like Norman did. But that model line really kickstart enthusiasm and a very speedy journey for us going forward. Right.
So thank you once again, guys, for listening to our story. There's the complete picture of our story. Let's see, 30 seconds over my allotted time, 45 minutes, which leaves us now 15 minutes or so for questions.
Jason and Chris, well done. You certainly gave us great insight into the practicalities of applying lean management principles and practices in your environment. And as you rightly say, FMCG is not all that well known in the lean world, but not only did you make it work in that really strange world that those of us who grew up in manufacturing and commercial and healthcare, it took a while for me to understand what actually happens behind the scenes in a supermarket. But also, I think there were some other bigger challenges that maybe we should note. The first is that your challenge is that you're a very distributed organization with one or just a few people across a vast country, thousands of stores. And that in itself, how do you deploy a management system under those circumstances? I think you also maybe didn't say enough about the fantastic work that you've done to make better use of electronic communication and how to visualize on a cell phone in a way that people can understand and can use. So maybe we'll have to do another session on that in due course, so that people can learn from you again. Well done. You did such a good job that I don't see any questions in the chat other than thank yous for sharing all the learnings.
Now, maybe I can just quickly touch on those 2 points that you mentioned there. The challenge is it's a very dispersed working environment. As I mentioned, 15,000 stores, 4,000 people. The nice thing about the video that everybody saw is that is a store that has 5 people in it, 4 people in it, one kind of store leader and 3 other leaders. But in many environments, we've got one person that's looking after 5 stores. So he does not have any additional support, and he has to have a task board per store essentially, and the measurements per store. So rightfully said, it's one of the biggest challenges. Add to that we don't have the ability to bring everybody together into an environment where we can give them actual classroom training. So you're 100% right. The fact of the matter is we had to find digital solutions, be it a video or a visualization that we do with them, where we go from store to store. So definitely a massive challenge.
Chris, thank you for that. I would like to I have to run now to the session where I will be explaining more about the WPDCA and how we use it to systematically do the daily management system. So anybody who's interested in a bit more information about that, you're welcome to join that session, which starts in about 3 minutes. And then in half an hour, there will be the session by Espresso Bakery, who also use the daily management system, and that session will be on the main stage, and you'll see even more about it. So once again, thanks very much to Chris and Jason, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye then.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Cheers.